Thanks very much.
Excellent. Sorry, I hadn't realised you were sharing our slides, so I'll just pop that out so I can see it. Brilliant. Okay, lovely to sort of meet you all. I've just come in on the end of the icebreaker. It was really interesting, debating whether I'd go for the 2 metre long arms or the 2 metre long legs. I don't know, I'd probably go for the legs, actually, I'm not sure. Anyway, welcome. Well, lovely to be with you all. So I'm with my colleague Carl, and we're from Solent NHS Trust. And those of you in Hampshire will know that Solent is merging with Southern, who have already merged with the community part of the Isle of Wight. So we're going to be a sort of super community trust. And in Solent, for the last 5 or 6 years, we've had this thing called the Academy of Research and Improvement. And what it is, if you look at it from the perspective of other trusts, is the bringing together of a number of corporate teams for hopefully what I can explain for logical reasons. So it's not a separate research team, a separate audit team, a separate quality improvement team. We all work together and we share lots of roles and work and what have you. So I'm a speech and language therapist by background. I spent the best part of 25 years working with adults, specialising in dementia. And Carl, who I'll let say more about himself when he comes on to talk through his slides, is a physiotherapist by background, but we are full-time working in the academy. So we're going to talk a bit about getting involved in research and improvement. We'll do it from the context of the way we work, but we'll refer to sort of national setups as well, and give you a taste of what it's all about, if that's okay. So if you could move on to the next slide, please. So we have, the way we work within our trust, we have an intranet where we hold lots of sort of projects and resources, but everything as well is on our website. So that's our website, www.academy.solent.nhs.uk. There's loads of information on there. There's lots of resources, and there's also lots of training opportunities. So all of our virtual workshops, I'm a bit nervous saying this to 159 people, are open to anybody. So our members of staff, anybody else in the country, patients and the public as well. So you can come along to those if you'd like to. You can use our resources, you can read our blogs. And this week actually is Quality Improvement Week, and we actually launched QI Week. Anita de Havilland and our team came up with the idea, and I believe there's about 50 or so trusts, it might be more than that, across the country that are participating in it. So we're kind of big on the social media side of things. I have a question. Happy to take a question from Nasser.
Sorry, it's not a question, but I'm not seeing the screen. I don't know what I'm seeing on my screen, if it's everybody seeing the same thing, because I can see, I don't know if it's a Jolie, Chloe.
I can see the slides.
Sorry?
I can see the slides, so it may not be a universal problem. I don't know if anyone else is having problems.
I can't see the slides. Just seeing you, sorry.
It could be the view. You might just need to leave and come back.
Okay.
Right thing.
Sorry about that. I think most people will see the slides, but I'm assuming they'll be shared, and we're talking through as we go anyway. So you know, the slides are just there really as a reminder for ourselves and a bit of an illustration for yourselves.
Will I leave it then and then come back, or?
Probably. I think that's probably the best thing to do. I'll move on if that's okay. So if you could go on to the next slide, but have a look at our website later. So this is just an illustration of the components of the way we work. We have a library and knowledge service. Most trusts will have a library. We have a people participation team, which Carl is the lead for. And we put that early because we think patients, the public, people with lived experience, that includes staff, should influence the majority of what we do. And Carl explained a bit more about that. One of our sort of introductory offers into the world of improvement and research is audit. An audit is just checking to see whether you've done what you should be doing. It's taking a sample of patients or other things that you could sample, case notes, for example, and checking to see whether we are meeting the policy, the guidance, etc. And you get a percentage compliance score. Evaluation, on the other hand, is more interesting. Well, it kind of is. It's looking at the impact of the work we do. It could be looking at outcome measures, the before and after change in people's health or well-being. It can include interviews, surveys, focus groups, observations, a whole range of techniques. I was just writing a note. We had a mystery shopper who went in and tried a service to see what experience they had. And we're actually currently looking at expanding our evaluation offer. And that's for individual services across the trust. But we as the Academy also have something called CoLab, which is an external paid for evaluation service where organisations like the ICB, for example, can come along and ask us to do an evaluation. Audit and evaluation is just measuring, and they should have some sort of improvement plan. And then quality improvement comes along and looks at it in more detail and wider. It looks at who we should be involved in trying to make an improvement, taking some measures to start with, and then kind of experimenting, having trials, what they call PDSA cycles, plan, do, study, act, cycles of small changes, which hopefully will lead to an improvement. And then you spend a bit of time thinking about how am I going to sustain this? So that's quality improvement. And then research really is going on from there, looking at new things, untested things not just in our trust but across the country. It could be new ways of working in therapies, it could be new drugs, new surgical techniques, new pieces of equipment, etc. And unlike audit and evaluation where we're just measuring or asking the patient to sort of come along to an interview, that type of thing, with research it's in addition to the current care pathway, the current treatments available, and you're going to the patient and you're saying to them, we want you to do some measures, but we also want you to try a new treatment. Are you happy to? And obviously there's a whole process about informing them. And then kind of alongside that is a whole load of innovation. And actually what we have in Solent is a Dragon's Den, just like the TV programme. It's happening today actually, where we have not millions, but £10,000 per go for people to come along and ask for support. And actually a lot of the time they are more focused on the Dragon's support than they are the money. So that's our offer. And just to say, the topic can go from a bit of searching in the library through to getting patients involved, a bit of auditing, a bit of evaluating QI, right through to research. We in the team can also follow that path. We start off by doing audit, and then who knows, before long involved in research. And the people we work with, yourselves, our colleagues, can start off as an auditor, and before long they find themselves doing a full-blown research study. So it's a sort of pathway you can go along. Next slide, please. And this is how we do it, really. We have workshops, which are all on our website, apart from some which are face-to-face. A whole load of resources on our website. We do a lot of bespoke support. We are there to help. We have networks. We have preceptor networks, advanced clinical practitioner networks, researcher networks. And actually, it would be fantastic to have AHP and other support worker network in the trust, which we don't currently have linked to ourselves, but that's something we should be working on. And part of our goal is to share learning. So things when they're really good that have happened, we don't just keep it to ourselves, we try and share it across the trust. So we have lots of conferences and sharing events, and we're big on social media, Twitter, TikTok. Ask Carl about TikTok, not me. All the various platforms for sharing, and so we have our own comms team as well. Next slide, please. So the starting point really is join the library. So if you haven't joined the library, it's available in all trusts, should be available to everybody. Certainly in Hampshire, we have a network where any employee of one trust can use other trusts' libraries, both physical, but our library is entirely virtual, digital. You can look at fancy journals, but you can also search what we call the grey literature, which could be magazines, professional body articles. Some of those have a larger readership, to be honest. And the librarian can help you identify what to look for, but they can also help you to critically look at that and think, is this good or not? Where's this come from? One thing we kind of encourage that should include all members of a team are journal clubs. And in journal clubs, we had one in speech and language therapy when I was practicing. We would, on a monthly basis, look at the topic, look at the evidence, think about how good is this? How reliable is it? How could it be done better? And what difference does this make to the way we work? Should we be adopting this way of working in our teams? Next slide, please. So over to Carl, if that's okay. I'll hide.
Hi everyone, and thanks for letting me join with Colin. My name's Carl. I'm a physiotherapist by background, and I'm pleased to say I'm very proud of my journey as a support worker for 5 years prior to coming to do my qualification in physio and then come on my career that way. So I started off early in my career across many different sectors of the NHS as a support worker. So it's great to see these things. I wish I had this back when I started, but, so it's great to see this. So Colin just talked about how we start with research, as in the evidence that's out there and library out there. But the other key place to start is working with people, the patients who do it. So we can have some great ideas and some wonderful things we want to change, but actually we need to involve the people who are this most affects, and that can be staff as well as patients and things like that. And we talk a lot about improvement in research is a team game. It involves people. Sitting in a room and doing it on your own is not going to make little change, and especially if you're not involving patients, because it could be a waste of time or not needed, or their ideas be better. And also patients and staff, we see the system differently. We only see our one department or one area. We don't see that whole wide journey a patient we go with. So we want to start with patients. And one thing I talk a lot about is how we do that. How do we go out and do that? And some of the best conversations can be had when you're doing therapy, when you're involved with people, when you're working with people on a day-to-day basis. And I really think this is a great opportunity. So if you have the opportunity to participate in research or improvement activities, then as a support worker or as a team, talking to patients about your ideas and about when, informally, when you're walking back from a clinic, or when you're on a ward, or when someone asks you some help, or whatever it is, there's lots of opportunities we can have those conversations. I've got this idea, what do you think? And speak to carers as well. And that knowledge can really help. So I think start with that, seek out and speak people to about what they want to do. Next slide, please. So we want to find out, don't we? We want to find out what matters most to them. Is it important? Is this topic, this area we want? We want to find out that because we want to see if it's a priority and if it's worth doing. Is it worth the effort as well? We could put a lot of effort into not a lot of gain. So we want to find that out. We have a lot of patients also who are now becoming advocates in research. They participate in research, but also help design research. They will give their opinions on the research they're doing. So how can we do that as well? And also we're working hard now to really get that missing voice, get that diversion. Who's really most effective from the area we're trying to prove? Is it really a fair representation of our population we're trying to treat, or the area we're working in? So we really want to start with people. But as I said, it's all about actually change will happen, and effective change will happen when the right people and all the people are involved, rather than like doing it on your own. So we want to build that partnership to co-design right from the start. We don't want to do lots of work. We're going to do this. We're going to change this clinic. We're going to change this pathway, and then think about asking people. That's the way to start from the beginning, start from the conception, and involve them throughout. And I think you can get involved in lots of things online, but building foundations and research will try and build. It's using people's experiences and connections. So if you have a chance to get involved, I think it's a great opportunity to support and your ideas, or get patients involved in it, because it is a team game. So it's about how we do that, and there is opportunities out there. Just going to share, we had a team who came through our quality improvement program. We were looking at how the first appointments around occupational and physiotherapy appointments in children therapy services could be optimized. So there's lots of discussion around how some of the families and children come along and not quite get what they wanted from the appointment or the service because expectations weren't quite clear or weren't sure what the service offered. And a key part of that team was an occupational therapist support worker. And she was really pivotal in the involvement of the families. And she reached out as part of that team. She reached out to someone who complained about the therapy and waiting for children's therapy for her son. And this support worker was amazing at bringing together that patient voice with this mum and some wider families. And I'm pleased to say that the expertise and the skills she learned through that led her to another role within the participation where she now advocates and supports many services in children's and families around involving people in change. So yeah, amazing piece of work, but a great opportunity. Like I say, seek these opportunities out to get involved in quality improvement research, audit, evaluation, etc. Because I think there's some real value, and I think she was really passionate about it. Yeah, thank you. Next slide. Good timing. And Colin's touched upon this. We use each. It's partly what tools for the right job, but so you've got this clearer. It's not always clear. Is research is about trying to find out the right thing to do. What's the optimum standard for that? What can we make as a standard with the evidence we have, and what new areas do we need to trial and do? And typically, we're looking to find out new ways of working or things like that, or adapt something to work in a slightly different way. It has quite a rigor process, some ethical things, and that can be done internal in trust, or it can be done external from researchers who lead it who want to come and work with our patients. We then have obviously clinical audit where we're looking at comparing ourselves against a standard that researchers set or some other standard that's set, and we want to measure that. And so capturing that data and then reflecting what does that mean to then understand where could we improve or how are we doing compared to others is where audit has its function. But it's kind of understanding what we're doing and where we are at. An evaluation is, like say, looking at what we've done and what we've done before and what can we learn from that. Not always against the stand, but actually it's tend to be done when we've tried to implement a change or we've done something for a while and we want to learn from it, learn what's good, not so good, where can we tweak it, where can we change. And hopefully that some of these things will lead on to quality improvement, which is real that implementation side. So how can we make a change, or how can we use sciencey tools to work with people to then make a change that's effective. And also, so really there's not really one way's best for other. It depends what you're trying to do, the area you're working in, how new or open it is, and what's out there and been done before. But it does give you an array of opportunities here to get involved, to help out, to lead, to things, and again, seek out in your trust or departments like this that can support research, audit, and quality improvement. Next slide. And we typically see people developing their knowledge and skills and confidence in making changes in this linear-ish pathway. So most people will start with the library services. So what's already out there, what is known about the subject area. So I want to change, I want to implement this new equipment, or I want to implement a different way we provide resources or information, then know what's out there. And there's a lot out there already, a lot of known knowledge. So actually, what can we adapt or change, or what we call pinch with pride, nick it and reuse it and adapt it for our environment. We obviously want to involve that patients in that, because whatever we want to change, we need to see if it's important to them, but also what does it really mean to them, and how can we make it? Because our world's quite complicated. Healthcare is quite a complex system. So how can we help patients who receive whatever we are changing or doing, and to make it optimized for them? And then we see people developing those ideas into audits, service evaluations, or quality improvement, and they tend to develop into some of the opportunities in the way that sort of the scale and the complexity of those change over time, and they come through different opportunities that are funded and not funded, or internal or external, to make changes, or can be across trust, so integrated between two different pathways, say from a hospital to the community. And then we see people go on and be part of research applications, delivering and participating in research. So Colin will talk more about some of the roles we have in the research world as support workers. Next slide, please. So yeah, a lot of people ask, like, what is the difference between research and evaluation? And I think I won't go too much because I mentioned a lot of it, but it is about that untested treatment, and people consent to that treatment, and you tend to compare people having the new treatment against the people who don't, or you will keep normal care going and compare that to a new treatment. Where in evaluation and quality improvement, we don't deny people the treatment, so everyone receives it, and we're evaluating what that means for everyone. And so they're some of the main differences, but there is some main difference, and it's not always clear. And so working with departments like ourselves, we help to navigate these worlds, because we're here to help to do that. So I hope that's useful. I'm going to hand over to Colin to explain some of them all about the QI and some of the roles. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Carl. I'll just sort of whistle stop through the rest of the slides if that's okay, because I don't want to run over too much. So quality improvement, I think I touched on that already. A lot of audits and evaluation will end with how we're going to make things better. Sometimes it will literally be tell the staff, change the form, do some training. But we know that actually it's not always that simple. Sometimes we know what we're meant to be doing, but we don't do it for other reasons. So quality improvement is more about getting people together, getting the right people together. And actually, if you get the right people together working on a project using tools, it's more likely to stick, the changes you make to be sustained, rather than just a sort of flash in the pan, short change that everyone forgets about. Sometimes people forget about things because they're not involved, also because they don't get feedback, they don't see the value in it. So, you know, it's about getting the right people behind it, which should definitely include yourselves. Next slide, please. And this is just really a reminder of what we consider to be quality. Some quality improvement programs will focus more on cost and efficiency and waste, and we have a demand and capacity program which does that. It looks at what's the demand for the work, how many staff do we need, that kind of thing. But we're as well focused, equally focused on providing good care, effective, safe, equitable, responsive, well-led care. So that's what we think of as being quality. So next slide, please. I'll talk a bit more about research now. So this is a slide we use with our advanced and consultant practitioners, just to give you an idea of what they ought to be up to. And they do have to demonstrate their research activity each year. So we would see those as being sort of research leaders. And then the progression towards that is really becoming, to start with, just being aware of what the evidence is for the work you're doing. Having an idea of the different sorts of research, and I use that broadly because there's a lot you can do as an evaluation. If you're just working with your patients and you're just measuring the impact of work, then there's an awful lot that can be done without going through the whole research approvals processes. And then when it starts to get interesting is when you start to link with other people and you get involved in networks. You start searching the evidence, you start supporting research projects and colleagues, and then at the next level you're leading those, helping to design new research. And a really key part of research is feasibility. Is this doable? We do meet quite a few very academic, ivory tower lofty people who've got fancy ideas that just aren't doable because they don't live in the real world. And I'm thinking you guys will have a far better idea of how many of those sorts of patients do we have? How likely are your patients to do what's being asked of them? Is it excessively burdensome, unrealistic? So, you know, I definitely think that people who are working clinically on the ground should be involved in designing research. So next slide, please. So one of the things that we're involved in, and we're just about to start a new cohort with nearly 70 people on, is something called the Research and Development Programme in Solent and Southern. This is open to all staff, clinical and non-clinical, corporate as well. And it ranges from people that work in our corporate services, people that work in support roles, through to doctors, consultants, AHPs. And I'll be honest, the people that seem to progress the most are those that are the most enthusiastic. Ideally, people with a good idea who don't mind knocking on doors, trying out all the opportunities. People that just sit back and wait for it to happen often don't go very far. And it's just 3 days. It's an in-person training program. We like to have people collaborating, working with each other as little mini teams. And you'll see Harriet, actually, who's the lady in the front with the stripy, thin stripy t-shirt on. She's a Band 5, newly qualified occupational therapist. Had a fantastic idea. She came from the Royal Navy. She linked with the Royal Navy Defence Academy, got a grant, £10,000, to work on a project looking at the role of OT in the Navy. And now she's just been awarded a full scholarship and funding and salary to do a PhD. She just had the right idea, the right people, made the right connections, put in a bit of effort, and she's flying. There were other people in that room who were, more senior, more experienced, who didn't go very far. So that's our research development program. I hope you have something similar. If you come work for Central Southern, it will be available. So next slide, please. So what we're doing on that program or within teams is asking people to be involved. So we have research development, which is individuals growing to become researchers, and research delivery. And delivery is where we, as a department, Academy of Research and Improvement, are delivering other people's research. And that can come from Southampton University, University of Oxford, Cambridge, Manchester, all sorts of international studies. And somebody has designed the research and we're finding the participants. So at the moment we're doing a massive study looking at diabetes in children. So we're actually going around schools and shopping centres and parks and all sorts of places and recruiting people with proper informed consent and parent support, etc. So that's research delivery, and literally the way it works is we employ people and we get paid for every person we recruit, and it's like a business really. And there are opportunities within that to either develop research or particularly to deliver it. So if you go on to the next slide. So those roles we have in our team, and it will be similar in others, we have clinical trials assistants in our team. That's a Band 4 role. So our clinical trials assistants will be the ones out there in the schools doing the finger prick with the children, taking the blood, doing the or from the fingerprint, taking the blood, doing the consenting with the parents. Then we have clinical research practitioners, who is a Band 5 role for us, and they are more experienced and they have more training, so they actually can take proper blood samples from people. And then obviously with our team we have research nurses and AHPs and physios, OTs, etc. We also have governance officers who look after all the paperwork and all the permissions, etc. And across the trust we have some people who are clinical academics that are developing their own research, but there are definitely opportunities there to develop into research careers. So next slide, running out of time. So if you want to develop a research study, it's just a good idea, often not too big an idea, no sort of cure for cancer ideas. And good ideas often come from reading what's been done before. Most people that write about research will finish with, this is how it could have been done better, this is what needs to be done next time. And anybody with a lot of lived experience or access to people, I did my research with carers for people with dementia. And I was running a carers course at the time. I had about 20 new people every 8 weeks. So it was very, very doable because I had access to a lot of people. So that made my research project really, really good, really useful, really easy to do. So yeah, if you have an idea, get in touch with your research team, talk to your colleagues, and help sort of work it out into practice. Next slide, please. Don't forget our workshops I mentioned at the beginning. We have ones on working with patients, on audit and evaluation, interviewing, surveys, measures, looking at the evidence. That probably you're better off going to your own trust for library type ones, because it will be based on your library setup, social media, publications, and then research methods. So next slide, please. As I said, and I say this all the time in the research development program, it's all about opportunities and enthusiasm. We've just, so the people that go on our program, we send them an email it's about every week. I've just seen today there are 7 opportunities on there, many of which come with money, and we support people to apply for things as well. So there's often opportunities coming up, and it's about working out what the next step is. We had a psychology assistant who did he had an evaluation to do, but he really wanted to do it as a research study. He got all the permissions to deliver it as a research study, which meant he could take it to other sites. Did really well, and then he used that as his evidence for getting a place on the clinical psychology course. Chantal, who's one of our physios, she has an therapy assistant in the Limb Centre at Portsmouth Hospitals, where she also works, and they're a really active research group, and their assistant is involved in designing and recruiting studies, because they're very much, in contact with the patients all the time. And obviously there are apprenticeships for if people are moving into therapy roles as such, as a physio, speech or OT, and within that there'll be opportunities to do research or move into research careers. Next slide, please. There you go. But I think I might have used up all my time.
I think you've gone over just by a couple of minutes, so I'm not sure if you've got time to hang around. If maybe if people want to put any questions in the chat, then we might be able to answer them in the break. I don't know if you'd be able to hang around for half an hour. I think the break's at about 10 to 11.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much both. So if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A or use the chat box, and we can answer them in the break. Okay, so I think we're now moving on to there's your details on the next slide, but we will share the slides after the conference. So we're moving on now to we've got Claire Wardle and Andy Sharman from NHS England on the call, who are going to talk about support workers as educators. So I will hand over to you two. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chloe. I just want to check that Claire is with us. I can't see her on the chat, but hopefully she'll join us shortly. Andy. Oh, you are there. Excellent. Good. I'll just start off by introducing myself, then I'll get Claire to sort of introduce herself, and then we've got a few short slides to sort of work through and tell you a little bit about this. So my name's Andy Sharman. I'm the sort of AHP Senior Workforce and Education Specialist for Urgent Emergency Care within the Clinical Professions team within NHS England, sort of Workforce Training Education Directorate that works across the whole of the South East. And Claire, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Hello, everyone. Great to be here today. My name's Claire Wardle. I'm from Workforce Training and Education at NHS England South East, and my role is around health and care support workforce education senior specialist.
Great, thanks, Claire. So if we could have the next slide, please. So I'm going to start off talking a little bit about sort of AHP support workers as educators, and then Claire's going to pick up about some further work around sort of development opportunities and sort of things like that as we go along. So one thing that's it's always a really good thing to start with is in April 2023, the AHP career framework, educator career framework, was published. And this, if people haven't seen this, it was published, and its whole purpose is to establishing a national standard for the AHP education workforce. It is an outcome-based framework underpinned by 6 guiding principles, and those principles are people first, equality, diversity, so the ones in grey around that one, education for all, community-centred, inclusive learning, and multi-professional. So those are the guiding principles, and the framework describes the knowledge, skills, and behaviours required to be an effective teacher, learner, learning facilitator, supervisor, and role model for AHPs in education across all career stages. One thing that's really important to note with this framework is that the term educator is used throughout to describe all those involved in the learning and development of others. So that is everybody. It's not just people who are, you know, sort of an academic educator or a fully you have undertaken, you know, sort of you know, so higher education routes to become practice educators. It's for anyone who's involved in the learning and development of others. And I know full well that as support workers, you will be involved in the development of others. You will have sort of, you know, sort of other support workers who are starting their journey working alongside you. You'll also have, you know, sort of people who are, you know, first year, second year, third year students on pre-registration programs who will also work alongside you, and they will learn a huge amount from you because you know your roles inside out and back to front, and are massively beneficial. And throughout my career, I've worked alongside sort of you know, social support workers, and have learned as much from them as I hope they've learned from me. So it's a really good sort of teamwork approach that we can all have. So within this framework, it looks at the range of AHP educator roles within and their associated capabilities, and proposed education and training and academic standards through 6 domains. And those 6 domains are responsibility and accountability, diverse and inclusive leadership, community co-production, formal knowledge and skills, digital sustainability, and research, innovation, and quality improvement. So all sits within that educator framework. And if we can move on to the next slide, please. So one thing that's really interesting that you'll find if you have a look at this framework is that the academic qualification framework sets out a future ambition for the accreditation of AHP educators wherever they work. And these 2 tables I've lifted directly from that document. I think the key thing to note about as well that we have to recognise that this is future ambition, and it's radically different from current practice. It's also very, very ambitious. And it describes that future where all AHP educators are accredited educators and required to undertake formal accredited programs and/or academic qualifications. So the reason I've put these in is when we actually look at the first table there on there, that is the Advanced HE UK Professional Standards Framework, so the UK PSF, not so. And within that, there's the different roles that we have and the different levels that they can sort of be within there. And the ambition is that our support worker workforce, as you'll see in that first column, after completing sort of appropriate training, could become an associate fellow of advanced HE, you know, which allows you then to work within sort of further education, but also within higher education settings within those roles. So that is one of those really sort of key things, that this is the ambition that we have support workers actually working in HEI settings, helping develop support workers, but also helping develop our registered workforce as well, because of the absolutely amazing contribution that you bring to that. On the table on the right, we've got the sort of less academic routes from that. So, you know, there's locally provided education programs. These are available free to access on e-learning for healthcare. And that will all be moving eventually sort of over to the training hub within NHS England. As those who you don't know, Health Education England, who I used to work for and Claire used to work for, merged with NHS England. So we're now this Workforce Training Education Director. So we're still migrating stuff over from sort of health education stuff into a single sort of platform. And again, on that, again, looking at that where we have the support worker line within that, you know, these programs you look at providing sort of coaching skills. education focused CPD, foundation degree level sort of CPD practice sort of educator courses, and as well degree potential sort of level 6 mentorship education qualifications for those who want to actually sort of follow that route. This isn't saying that everyone has to follow these routes, but it's actually providing those opportunities, because as you'll find out as I talk about my career journey a little bit later on, sometimes like these opportunities we have to grab them when we have them, and sort of move forward with that. So that's a little bit about the sort of the sort of education, the AHP education framework. So I'm just going to move on to something that we've been working with the Repair Fellows to talk a little bit about how we've been helping prepare people for moving into this. So if we can have the next slide, please. So what we've been working with our Repair Fellows, and Repair Fellows came about initially within nursing, and they were there to help sort of look at initially retention on programs. But they've done various projects. One of the recent projects that they've been working on is the Aspirant Educator Masterclass. So this is a free half-day online masterclass to give healthcare professionals an insight into different educator roles in clinical practice and higher education institute settings. It's been developed and facilitated by experienced practice educators and sort of who work in practice education, but also in higher education, also in NHS England, so workforce training education. And it comes from, we all come from multi-professional backgrounds, including nursing, midwifery, allied health professions across the South East. So if I go to the next slide, please. So the masterclass's aims were to enable healthcare practitioners to develop an insight into practice educator roles, to enable healthcare practitioners to be prepared to access practice educator roles in a range of settings, and to support the implementation of the educator workforce strategy and the long-term workforce plan. And anyone who has sort of, well, everyone will be aware that there is this long-term NHS long-term workforce plan, which is a 10-year plan for actually looking for the workforce requirements for the future of our NHS. So if I could have the next slide, please. So what's actually taking place in these classes is a little bit about setting the scene, so people have a little bit of an insight about those two documents we were talking about: pathways into education. What does the groundwork look like to build a portfolio in preparation for when an ideal job comes up as a paid role? And case studies with lived experience of practice educators and sort of educators as well. And also goes through about what some of the challenges they face, what they would do differently, and what are their top tips. And they also have, within those masterclasses, they have breakout rooms about, have you ever wondered what it's like to work at university and what's it like to be a practice educator? And then there's support and mentorship by experienced educators and sort of, and from nursing, midwifery and our allied health professions. So it is a really sort of multi-professional approach to these masterclasses. If I could have the next slide, please. So the applications for this programme were open until the 12th of August, and there were over 400 applicants for this, and with 35% coming from the allied health professionals, including the professions listed there. What really excited me was the fact that we have 3 non-registered AHP support workers who have also expressed an interest to be in this. I would have loved to have seen more, but the fact that we've got 3 who expressed an interest is fantastic, because it means that we have people like yourselves are going, actually, I'd like to find out a bit more about this because I think I could do this, or I'd like to find out about it to find out if I think I can do it. And so that's that. So these are going to be running over the next the next sort of few months. Unfortunately, they were so oversubscribed, they are all fully booked. But I'm hoping to talk with them to look at running a similar thing next year. But unfortunately, all the ones for this year are sort of fully booked for those people to attend those. So that's just a little bit around sort of some of the work that we've been doing within NHS England Workforce Training and Education about supporting the support workforce to become educators. I'm just going to hand over now to Claire to talk a little bit more, some more detail about some of the other stuff going on. So over to you, Claire.
Thanks, Annie. And apologies if there's a bit of background noise from me. I'm out and about today. So if I could have the next slide, please, that would be great. Lovely. Okay, I just thought of it worth mentioning around the care certificate. Now, I'm sure a number of the colleagues online today have perhaps already achieved the care certificate themselves. But I think this is a really great opportunity to be part of that assessment process for perhaps individuals new to that support worker role and where you may be working in your setting. It is obviously the care certificate is really a key component of the overall induction, which we know an employer must provide to really meet those fundamental standards set out by the CQC. And for some individuals, it's so important because it really is the start of their career journey. And then for some individuals, perhaps they haven't had the best experience at school or may not have a lot of academic qualifications. But for some coming into a health and care environment, they really feel this is a good starting point for them, and it may sort of pique their interest in then going on to further education and training and really developing their career pathway. I have got a link there under the care certificate. So if those of you perhaps not fully aware of the care certificate, what it's made up of and the different standards, please do have a look at it. But to be an assessor, the person must themselves be competent in the standard they're assessing. And literally, this could be by holding a qualification related to the role or to have undertaken the care certificate themselves. And it really is about working with your manager in your area to ensure that they're happy for you to complete the assessor role. In some organisations, the care certificate team that may sit within education and training, they do sometimes hold some assessor support sessions. Very often there's a bit of sort of education around that, support, there's a badge, to really, show that development as well. And that assessor role is responsible for making that decision on whether that support worker has met those standards set out in that care certificate. No, not necessarily do you have to hold a teaching qualification, but as I say, the employer must be confident that you've sort of competent to assess. And while I like this assessor role, it can then lead on to other programs around teaching, assessing, or accessing education qualifications like the Level 3 Learning and Development, which is an apprenticeship, or Level 5 Learning and Skills Teacher. And this can then enable you to either grow and develop within your current role if you enjoy the education and training element, but also in the future, perhaps you may want to teach at a College of Further Education or another teaching setting. So again, there's a link there to apprenticeship qualifications, and we're always trying to take every opportunity to promote apprenticeship qualifications. So thank you, Chloe. Next slide. Touching on apprenticeships, if those of you are not perhaps fully familiar with apprenticeships, it is a paid role where the employee works towards a qualification and gains that valuable experience. It can be offered to individuals from the age of 16 who have the right to work in the UK and have been living in the UK for 3 years. So apprenticeships have to be 12 months or more in length to be valued and to meet the funding requirements. There's quite a lot of rules and regulations around apprenticeships. The beauty of them really is, alongside on-the-job training, you get that identified training time. So it should be around 6 hours a week. So that's really protected time where you might be undertaking some classroom-based learning with a college or university or a training provider. So they can be offered from a variety of different providers, and it does produce a nationally recognised certification that you can then take elsewhere if you want to. So you see the added benefits, you get your normal terms and conditions of your employment, paid holiday leave, same salary as well. I think a lot of individuals think they're undertaking an apprenticeship, they need to drop to an apprentice salary, so you should continue on the same terms and conditions. As I say, it leads to a nationally recognised qualification, and they can range from level 2, sort of entry level, which is equivalent to GCSE, up to degree level and masters as well. So depending on what you're interested in, there's lots of different resources that you can have a look at for apprenticeships as well. And you'll also have an apprenticeship lead within your organisation, or your manager hopefully will be able to advise you as well. Course costs are generally funded by the employer, who then also provides that release time for learning and placements if required, and support in the workplace as well. There is normally a requirement for apprenticeships to be able to support English and maths as well. So it's a mandatory element for the level 3 apprenticeship and above to hold English and maths at GCSE C grade or above, or 9 to 4 in the new money, as we say. Or it can be equivalent to functional skills level 2. So that includes literacy and numeracy as well. Again, there's lots of information available around functional skills. NHS England provide a free online resource. If you have a look on the HASO website, HASO, there's lots of information about functional skills, literacy and numeracy, and also they are offered by local colleges of further education as well. Thank you, Chloe. Next slide. I just wanted to touch on funded development for allied health professional support workers. There is 2 offers currently on offer. It has recently closed, and it is currently being decided whether we can continue with that offer to offer that out. But there has been funding offered for individuals to undertake the Senior Healthcare Support Worker Level 3 apprenticeship. And again, I've got a link to the Level 3 if you would like more information, and the Healthcare Assistant Practitioner Level 5 apprenticeship, which is a foundation degree. There is funding being offered to employers as on a 2-year basis of £4,162 each year. And if you feel it's not the right time this year, or you feel you're missing out this year, we do hope this offer will be recurrent. That is definitely the plan, because the learner does need to start the course by the end of March 25, so this current financial year. So that might be a bit challenging in some areas, and some of you already may have put your name forward and you'll be starting on a programme. It is how the money works. It will go to the employer and it's broken down per month. We could go forward again. That's fantastic, thank you. So another opportunity I wanted to just mention is the Higher Development Award. This is really a national programme that has gained more and more momentum, really successful programme, lots of positive case studies that we're seeing. Predominantly it's been used for individuals wanting to go into sort of nursing associate roles and nursing, but the way it's been sort of rejuvenated within the region, the beauty of it is it can be offered to all support workers in all sectors and areas. And it really is a personal development programme to be the best and acknowledge potential. Again, I've got some information there if you're interested in it. The award can contribute to a progression pathway to access multi-professional higher and degree apprenticeships, as well as traditional pre-reg routes as well. And it also provides development for those wishing to remain in that support worker role. For some individuals, they feel that they know their role really well, but they want to develop and gain more confidence in their own personal development. It really enables individuals an opportunity to return to learn new skills, or consolidate the current practice, and you gain a nationally recognised qualification. So in the South East, the offer is based on a team leading or leadership qualification at level 2 and 3. It can be delivered online or face-to-face with identified colleges of further education over a period of 6 months. So the release time is quite minimal, and it's normally for workshops once a month, and there will be some sort of distance learning required, perhaps of an evening, whenever it fits in with yourselves really. I believe we've got an offer in each of our systems. We've got one starting in sort of the Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire area in October. We've got one at Chichester College as well for the Sussex area starting. But this isn't sort of a short-term qualification. These are second cohorts running, and we hope to continue these as well. So again, if you're interested, please do email me and I can send you further information on it as well. The good part of the Higher Development Award as well, it can then offer access to functional skills for you. If you want to take the course and you really enjoyed it and you want to continue with your learning, you can then tap into the literacy and numeracy and digital skills. And it doesn't mean you have to then go on to an apprenticeship, but you might just want to brush up on your English and maths and ensure you have a qualification if you don't already. The Higher Development Award is also part of the support worker learning and development roadmap that has been designed as a useful resource for support workers, educators, clinical leaders and managers. And again, there's a link there for more information on the NHS England website as well. And it's a really good conversation tool where you can have with your manager about all the different opportunities that you could perhaps access. So again, there's my email there. If you've got any questions at all from what I've been talking about around apprenticeships, Higher Development Award, please do get in touch. I think that's me.
Thank you both. So we are running behind just slightly. I think Katie is up next, also talking about support workers and educators. I need to stop sharing my screen just to upload her slides. There are 2 questions in the chat. I wonder if whilst I'm doing that, if you would mind answering the chat. Can you see them, Andy or Claire? Or do you need me to read them out? They're just in the Q&A tab, not the chat. Oh, sorry. Just in case you're looking at them.
I'm waiting for the Q&A to open. I think my internet is a bit slow where I am, so I might need to.
Okay, yes, so I can see the yes, so there's 3 questions there, isn't there? Let me just have a quick read. Okay. To answer sort of James's question to start, so Hayley, I think it's Hayley's question. Yes, I'm aware there is that sort of culture there. I think the thing with that is we have the AHP Educator Framework, which you can then actually say, well, actually, look, this says we can be part of this. So this is one of these things of having that framework there and talking to your sort of line manager and going, this is there, this is a document, this is what we want to work to, this says we can get involved in this and I'd like to. So that gives you a little bit of a lever from that sort of point of view. And Georgina, this will, around the Educator Masterclass, they're not holding a list because they still don't know whether funding is going to be available for next year to run this again. But it will be sent out like it was this time via all the AHP sort of faculties, which then get sent out to all the AHPs, and then you will be able to register interest in that. I'm really hoping we do get the funding for next year to continue this, but at the moment it's still a little bit sort of unsure, so that's why they're not holding a list. And our support workers able to sign off student notes. So again, it's going to, a lot of this depends on the regulator, the guidelines from the regulator and the guidelines from the university. And this is why the educator framework is, it's sort of a visionary approach. It's going to take work. There's going to be lots of stuff that needs to be put in place with regulators and with sort of HEIs to allow this to happen. But again, we have that framework as a tool to keep on saying, this is what we've said we want to happen. Therefore, we want to try to make sure we can do everything we can to make that facilitation, that sort of, to deliver what that is offering. So yes, so that's sort of all I can answer for that one, I'm afraid. And I've just seen there's a hand up from well, I can't see your name unfortunately, but I can just see your hand. So yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I was just going to say with some of the questions, because I'm an associate practice educator within Solent. So I was going to say with the first question, check within your trust, because your learning and development, they should have practice educators for registrants, but there are some trusts like Solent that also have associate practice educators that look after healthcare support workers and AHP support workers. So within my role, I look after both AHP support workers and healthcare support workers. So part of that will be to make sure that AHP support workers, especially because I came from an OTA background, are getting the development that they need, and they're getting the opportunities that they should be getting to be able to do some of these things that you're asking. And I guess that answered some of the other questions as well in terms of whether or not you can do whether or not you can sign off notes. You should be able to, because if you spend time with that person, you should be allowed to. But then again, try and find out with your managers, because what I've always been taught as a practice educator is you can't ask someone else to sign off what you've done, because essentially you're the one who's seen them do these things, these competencies. So I would suggest, from my practice educator perspective, if you're not being allowed to sign anything off, then it's probably, it puts you in a funny position when you're being asked to supervise someone, but they're not being allowed to sign off, because if someone else is signing off, how do they know that they've completed those competencies? So possibly that's something to take back to whoever may be asking you to supervise student, or whichever situation you might be in. But definitely check if you've got associate practice educators in your trusts. If not, the practice educators, some of them have started doing some work alongside healthcare support workers as well, in some other trusts. Sorry, I thought I would just because I know that associate practice educators are not popular at all. It's something that's quite new, but it is I think it is starting to happen within other trusts. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. So thanks very much for contributing. That's really, really good to have that sort of insight. So thank you for that. It's really, really appreciated. Well, final thing just before I head off is that there is going to be an interactive version of the AHP Educator Framework being launched at the beginning of October. And that will actually it's very interactive, and it's a lot easier to follow if you don't fancy reading through the whole document. But that's going to be launched in October. And again, that launch date will be sent around to all across the Southeast region. So back to you, Chloe.
Thanks, Andy. Just to let you know that there are a few more questions in the chat, but you can type respond to them. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind doing that. Sorry, I'm just wary we're quite overrun. So we have got Katie Arding now, who is going to talk for 10 minutes. We might have to shorten the break slightly, but I will just share her slides. So Katie, if you wanted to.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
I'll put my camera on. Hi, I'm Katie Arding. I work at Southampton General Trust. I'm just going to give you a little sort of background into my career here, because I had been approached to take on our TL students, which are college students coming in with a health and social care background, wanting to learn about my role. So next slide, please, Chloe. So I am a Band 4 therapy technician here. I've been in the trust since 2010. I worked on orthopaedics for quite a long time, loved my role there, and wanted to sort of develop my skills a bit more. So I moved into neurosciences, which is where I have stayed. I am very passionate about my job, and I think for that reason I was approached to be a good candidate to educate and pass on those skills to up and coming potential therapists. I did relocate from Dorset originally, so I have been with the NHS for many years now. I won't go into that, but I did want to become a physiotherapist at one point in my life, but unfortunately timing and falling in love and getting married to a physio and then going on to have a couple of children myself and that are now in school, it just hasn't happened, but it doesn't stop me always wanting to move forward. So this sort of role was given me the opportunity to do that, to develop maybe those skills that I haven't got, but the personal sort of interest of wanting to be a physio myself and having that kind of passion, I was approached by my team to ask if I would be happy to take on that experience and become a mentor for these students coming through. Next slide, please, Chloe. So I kind of going to give you a bit of an idea of what it sort of meant to me, what the experience was like for me to give other workers the opportunity to take on this role, because I think it's quite rewarding. Initially, what that sort of looked like for me was that I would have that sort of self-achievement, and potentially being an educator is following on from what's been said in the past meetings. And it gives me that opportunity to sort of learn and reflect on maybe having those skills in leadership and managing teams, and, you know, taking on those skills that I haven't done as yet as a therapy assistant. Those opportunities I thought I could then bring forward to any maybe career opportunities. There's been talk about having unregistered posts here at the General, which I believe has started going out to post, and that is for recognition for those skills that the long-term therapy assistants have had here. It would also give me experience in teaching, but also what's very passionate to me is being a team player and sort of supporting movement through the trust, and making a difference. And my one thing is patients' care, and if I can pass on those skills that hopefully to someone else will then continue the things that I've learned over the years, then that makes me feel very proud to have those followed throughout their career, and maybe others as well. Next slide, please, Chloe. So I did have some anxieties around it, but the support that we have here at Southampton General has been able to sort of relax all those anxieties that I've had. And that is thanks to Zoe, who I've pictured down below, and Nicola George, who are part of our educational lead here. I've had endless emails. I've had links into our network drive, which had lots of information about these students coming through to our trust, lots of flowcharts, presentations and PowerPoints to my access, so I could sort of curb all those anxieties that I've had. We've also had lots of team meetings, face-to-face contacts, and been able to support those students along the way and along their journey. We sort of set some halfway and final review meetings, which was supported with my educational lead, Zoe Allram, as well, and senior physiotherapists would come in on those meetings. So the support was there, which then made me feel quite confident about taking on this role. Next slide, please, Chloe. And obviously the challenges that I faced with this TL student coming to me and me taking on responsibility was quite a lot, because as a therapy assistant, I've always been underneath somebody and under someone else's guidance, whereas now I felt some responsibility having somebody learning from me. But we've got lots of stuff online, as I've touched on, which was accessible to us, and that gave us some do's and don'ts, a bit of a guide of these students of what they can and can't do, and a little bit of understanding of to where they come from, their background. So the TL students tend to have a good couple of years of in a classroom environment, learning about health and social care, and then also placements out of their classroom where they've learned to do the basic OBS. So I was advised that these TL students would come to me and be almost like a band 2 level working on the wards. So then that gave me that sort of confidence that I wasn't completely responsible with what work experiences coming straight from school, had no idea. They actually came to us with a good understanding of health and social care background. So then that took a bit of pressure off of me, because initially that was one of my biggest challenges of taking on somebody. But actually they had a good background. There was going to be no formal assessments needed, so I didn't need to sign anything or do anything particular that required that. And again, I had a lovely support from the team here at Southampton General and all the educating leaders. The other thing I think I was quite worried about was just sort of managing expectations of what the student was expecting from me or to gain from their experience here. So that was another thing that I struggled with, but setting sort of objectives with the students that were coming in and having time charts and a plan was really helpful of how I could sort of organise those challenges and manage those expectations, but also knowing that the students coming to me had an interest in therapy. So that made it feel less of a worry for me, because they actually wanted to learn. They wanted to be, whether it's a physio or an OT or even speech and language therapist, or maybe they hadn't quite decided what they want to do, but actually having that interest in health and social care made that a lot easier for me to understand. So next slide, please, Chloe. So the benefits then for me, I realised would be, I had a bit of support. So in the mornings, my general day would be to get handovers and create work lists. And actually having somebody alongside me, I was a bit worried about the time side of things, because sometimes you do need to just get on and do stuff, and I wasn't able to teach. But actually, it became beneficial to me because we could do the handovers together, and then I had somebody there that actually could complete maybe my work lists for me and take on a bit of that responsibility, which actually offloaded some of my work. The other benefits would be that because they had been trained already to do observations, and they had come through having done all of our VLE work, which is our online training. So they'd done all their manual handling skills. They had been through all the risk assessments within the trust, done health and safety, infection control. Then they were able to become almost an asset to me and being a double in supporting STAIR assessments for discharges, taking social history from patients. They became a second pair of hands, basically, for me to, to go and get those things that you suddenly need from the linen cupboard or from the sluice. And then that saved time for not just me, but the nursing staff across the unit, because I do work sometimes on my own on the ward, and the nurses would then have to go and get a lot of these things for me. So it was nice having someone alongside me, and then continuing that patient care. So whether I'd, finish with a patient, but actually they could have a little bit more, I could then leave the student alongside, but under supervision on the ward, where I'd be doing something else, doing the odd sort of chair exercises or continuing their mobility, and it would all be under supervision, but it was helpful to me and beneficial. And then those sort of equipment jobs that you don't get around to doing, whether it be the store cupboard and running down to the orthotics team, it was great having someone to work alongside and do those jobs. And also from a companionship side of thing, I really enjoyed having someone alongside me for the day and to be able to talk through patients and, reflect. So it was a really good benefit. Next slide, please, Chloe. So as a educator for these TL students coming through, I do have some recommendations for anyone else that does take on this role. The one thing that I found really worked was taking on like a diary. So I'd set this sort of 6-week period that they were with me and produce a diary Monday to Friday, and that would have a morning slot, an afternoon slot, and any other stuff that you wanted to do. And that would look like, from discussing treatment sessions to going into some of our other departments. You could really plan out your day for the students coming through, and then they had something to guide them through the day and reflect on at the end of the week. Next slide, please, Chloe. So recommendations alongside the diary planner, we have a therapies objectives form here, which the student was able to complete on arrival, and I'll just talk quickly through what was on that, because I know you can't see me holding this up. But training received, so they'd sort of tick off anything they've done, and we've got some videos here which tells you basic mobilization skills, exercises, how to go and get equipment and measure equipment and size it up for the patients, a little bit about SOAP notes and how to write, and a video on how to promote independence. So this was like a little form that they would complete of training they've received, and then their thoughts so they can reflect on all that training. And then it would go on to have a little bit like a criteria of things they've achieved throughout. So basically they can just tick off things that they've done as they've gone along the way. So like walking aids that they may well have issued, people that they've done exercises with, the mobilization side of things, they've done stairs assessments with me, and then they've got a nice reflection and document to take away. I ensured that they did lots of our in-service training, because I think it's good for them to go and listen to the seniors talking through patients' conditions and experiences. I used to book them in with SALT team, which is speech and language. I even managed to arrange a radiologist's session so she could go and look at x-rays and learn about that side of things. Outpatient settings, we had a spinal clinic here that was also beneficial for learning. So they're all good recommendations to sort of plan your day for your student, encouraging that sort of self-learning if you need some time, because we all need to have that bit of time where we need to catch up with emails or what have you. So self-learning for the student was great. And then updating my databases and doing stats and things, that gave me a bit of time away from teaching. But we also encouraged on a daily sort of basis doing some SWOTs, so your strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, a weekly reflection, so that we can then feed back anything that we've learned or anything we could sort of move forward to the following week while the student was here. And I think most of all is just to be yourself, because the student's there to learn from you and your experience and your teaching and skills. Next slide, please, Chloe. And then my highlights from having a student with me was the fact that they're coming straight from college, but with experience and with an interest. And then that encourages them to be enthusiastic about the role, and that enthusiasm then leads on to them being productive with you on the wards and productive with patients' care, which then meant that goals were achieved. My goals for the day, alongside the students' goals in making a difference with the patient's journey, and therefore sort of reinforcing maybe the role that they're wanting to go into, whether that's in occupational therapy or speech and language or physiotherapy, and many more. Next slide, please. So on reflection of having the opportunity to be with a support work, with a TL student and teach, was the ability to sort of lead and influence my skills here, and which then maybe will lead to me having a different career choice in the future. It helped me to feel proud of what I do on a daily basis, because it makes you reflect a little bit more on everything you do, especially when you have feedback from the student on a daily basis. And just enjoying teaching, because I think, you know, it, as Zoe quotes, showcase your talent and our professions, because it is a great job that I think we all do, and to be able to demonstrate that direct to a student up and coming is important to improving those skills and moving forward in patient care. Next slide, please, Chloe. So a little bit about my students' feedback that I've had since she has been with us. And, you know, I have had lots of feedback from her, but this one really stuck out, that she's received some interviews from all the universities that she applied for a physio, and I'm pleased to hear that she has now been confirmed a placement to continue her journey to be a physiotherapist. So successful story there. Thank you all for listening. Next slide, please, Chloe. Is there any questions, please feel free to message. If anyone wants links into any of the, you know, stuff that we have here, please email.
Thank you very much, Katie. I think there is a question for you. Can you see the Q&A chat?
I'll just load it now. What banding am I? A band 4.
Sorry,
is that okay?
It was a question for me. When you talked about these posts now going out in your trust, I was just curious, I wasn't clear. Are they being advertised at band 4 level, your current banding? Or
no, they will be a band
5. They will be band 5.
So an unregistered, the unregistered post is a band 5 post, but they are going out into the very busy areas, so they're going to start off in AMU and probably MOP, I would say.
Thank you.
And they will come with experience as well. So I think you have to have about four years in that specific area.
Okay.
As a band 4.
Working as band 4. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you have any more questions for Katie, please pop them in the Q&A. We're going to go to a break now. So if you could all come back within the next 10 minutes, please, that would be really great. We did allocate a little bit longer, but as I say, we are running behind, but that's fine. So yeah, please come back for 20 past before we start again, please. Thank you.